evening, Australia and the Philippines. Good afternoon, Bangladesh, India, and Sri Lanka. Welcome, welcome to the third panel discussion of the Leaders' Ed's talk show. This is an exciting time for all of us because even though we are going to be discussing what we call a big burden to some people who lost their jobs, but here you are, and I know you can give your ideas. So we are honored today with the presence of our highly esteemed Asia Pacific HR leaders. So we have with us, and let's welcome, and we are honored to have Mr. Musharoff Hossain, President of the Federation of Bangladesh Human Resource Organization. And we have, yes, we have Rosemary, Guyatt, General Manager, People and Culture, AHRI, Australia. And we have Mr. Vishwesh, National President of NIPM, India. And of course, we have Professor Ajantha Dharmasiri, Past President, CIPM, Sri Lanka, and our very own here in the Philippines, Chief People Officer, Scrub.net Global Services, Philippines, and President of the People Management Association, our very own Lynn Mukhi. Yeah, right. So, you know that we have just been through a horrendous disruption brought about by the malevolent pandemic, and it has caused horrendous, countless people to lose their jobs worldwide. Today, our panelists will share their own situation and strategies to mitigate this perfect storm. To start with, let me ask Mr. Musharoff Hossain about your unemployment rate and how does it compare with the rest of Asia Pacific? Mr. Musharoff?
Thank you very much for giving me the honor to speak first. You know, it has been a great pleasure to see my old colleagues together. Hi, Rosemary. We have spent a lot of time together, Ajantha, Mr. Kulkarni, and my good friend, and nowadays very heart-to-heart friend is Dina, Loomis. And of course, this is my pleasure to meet Lynn Mukhi. Your all past presidents were my friend. I hope from today you'll be also my friend. Okay. The question you have asked, this COVID pandemic affected the whole world. So far, 219 countries have been affected and Bangladesh is not out. First case in Bangladesh detected last year on 8th of March. Although in other parts, India and other places maybe before. And good thing is that our death rate is still very low. Altogether, a country have 160 million people. Our death is as of now 12,000 plus. So that's government has managed it very nicely. Going back to the question, job loss. There was a study, and this is available in the website. You can see the total job loss in Bangladesh. Bangladesh has two major cities, Dhaka and Chittagong. One is capital, another maybe second capital. About 68% people directly, indirectly affected in their jobs. Somebody lose their job totally, somebody has a less pay or retrenchment or layoff, somehow adversely affected 68%. And this study was conducted by a very renowned research organization called Center for Policy Dialogue. And it has been published in the #1 English newspaper in Bangladesh called Daily Star. You can also see that in the web. So when it is 68%, you can imagine what a disaster. And this morning, a newspaper interviewed me because, as you know, that people consider me a spokesperson in the HR because of my opportunity to work with the youth people in Asia Pacific Federation and World Federation. I have done my own research, not to please all these ladies here. Among the 68%, mostly are female. This is another dangerous approach, not because of their quality, not because of their competence, because of the attitude, male souvenir environment, because of playing safe in the organization. And so answer is 68%, but if you make it gender segregated data, more female than men. But altogether, whoever is working, they're the breadwinner of the family. And when they lose the job, it affects adversely. So this is the picture. Good thing is the government has given incentive in different sectors. Those sectors have been highly affected. Particularly, I can mention we are the second largest export country of garments wear, Bangladesh. So there are a lot of incentive from the government in order to support them to survive. So I think the answer is more than half of the population who are working in the organization their job or partially or fully lost their job. Thank you.
Oh my, okay. Any comment from, any feedback from the others? Oh, if not, if I don't hear any, I'm now going to call on Rosemary to answer the same question. I want to see the difference between Mr. Musharoff's country, Bangladesh, and Australia. So let's
Thank you.
Yeah, Rosemary, yes.
Thank you, Dina, and hello to the panel. Thank you very much for the invitation. Yes, of course, Australia is in quite a different situation. If we looked at the unemployment rate at the end of April this year, April 2021, our 0.5%, and what we call our underemployment rate has decreased to 7.8%. So very different figures. The unemployment rate at April 2021 was 0.9 points lower than the same time in April 2020, but just slightly higher than in March 2020, just when the pandemic started for Australia. In terms of actual numbers, how we count unemployment through our Australian Bureau of Statistics, it's calculated on if someone hasn't worked just 1 hour for the week, but they are also actively seeking work and currently available for work. So that's the sort of actual measurement that our ABS, the Australian Bureau of Statistics, uses to measure unemployment. So in actual numbers, the unemployed number of people decreased by about 33,600 to 756,200. Our youth unemployment rate has decreased by 1.1 points compared to last year at a rate of 10.6%. So our youth unemployment is still quite a bit higher than our overall unemployment. So that's really a summary of our actual status. What I would also add to the Australian figures is that actually we have skill shortages in Australia because Australia relies very heavily on skilled migration and our borders are still closed. And it looks like our borders won't be open until well into 2022. In fact, we've got the reverse problem or the opposite problem of skill shortages in many areas, whether it's agriculture, tourism, hospitality, all the areas that were really affected by the pandemic, and people have actually moved into other roles A lot of our skilled migrants moved back home. So that's now an issue that's facing the Australian economy.
Wow, Rosemary, I tell you, what a big difference, because here, for example, in the Philippines, as of last count, and I believe it's not even accurate, we have over 8 million people jobless here. But you have very few jobless. How did that happen? I thought you had also lockdowns.
Yeah, and in fact, my state is in a lockdown right now. So we started a lockdown midnight last night, and we will go for a lockdown for 7 days. Now, of course, the numbers to trigger a lockdown in Australia are very different. So when I tell you that we had 20 cases in Victoria in the last, as of last night, and that's triggered a lockdown. It is a different situation, but yeah, we are my state is in a lockdown.
Right. It doesn't sound so, it doesn't sound horrible, because that is so light. So
that's
easy.
Right.
So,
we do have a manageable situation,
right.
and the government certainly has used lockdowns many times over the last 15 months. So we're in our 4th lockdown.
Yes, that's why we really thought, our team really thought, that in order to hear from the different countries, we need to have a representation, because we cannot just have here and then Mr. Musharoff, my old reliable friend, who will always be there for us, but we want to hear from the other parts of the world. Now, Mr. Vishwesh from India, I was wondering, what measures did your government, do or conduct some kind of what we call mitigation to somehow help or lessen the economic impact on your local businesses so that they can start rehiring again? Oh, you are still on mute. You are still muted. Yeah.
I'm so sorry. Good afternoon from NIPM India. Thank you for the opportunity and greetings to my co-panelists. In India, presently, the unemployment rate is very high due to COVID-19 pandemic. Almost all the states in India are under the lockdown stage due to increase in demand and short supply of oxygen. Government have banned all the industrial use of the oxygen, one of the major reasons why industries are not doing well. And the present unemployment rate is around 14.5%, very high. And amongst that, around 9% from the urban area and 5.5% from the rural area. The less in the rural, because the farming activities were exempted from the lockdown. And that's the reason why some of the employment in the rural area and farming was there. During the January 21st to April 21st, almost 10 million people have lost their jobs. It's a huge thing. The government have taken certain measures to overcome such kind of a situation. One of the major popular scheme in India, which is known as Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Scheme, it is related to the rural part of the India. Under this scheme, the government gives the guaranteed employment for 100 days per year in the village background or in the rural part of the area. It has given to 341 million in a month.
Oh.
Huge numbers. For urban areas, government has decided to pay employers' contribution in social security like Provident Fund, wherein government will pay employers' contribution for up to 24 months, so that industry can engage maximum number of the trainees or generate the employment. The promotion of apprenticeship program and giving CSR benefit for engaging the apprentices, along with the financial incentive, is one of the most popular employment generation initiative taken by the government. Also, the government has given the production link incentive to the certain sectors like textile, engineering, aerospace. So they call it as a PDLI. So this incentive is given by the government for the promotion of the industry during such kind of a critical phase. Thanks, ma'am.
Wow, Mr. Vishwesh, but you can say that the situation has improved a little bit compared to the past.
Yes,
right?
very much improved, very much improved.
Everybody in the world is so concerned. You know, it's like the focus suddenly, went to your country because it was so sudden. You were doing so well suddenly. So it is a treacherous pandemic, really.
Yes.
You just cannot put your guards down. So,
it's very unfortunate state.
do you know, Mr. Vishwesh, do you know in the Philippines, from last year up to now, we are still on lockdown. Can you imagine a country in practically constant lockdown? It's just a little bit of, in one area, it's not, the restrictions are less, but still, overall, in fact, they have started already arresting people who did not observe protocols. For example, the people who went to weddings, who went to swimming pools and just had fun and all that. Oh my gosh, they got arrested. That, because if I suppose if our government does not do that, there will still be more and more and more, never ending cycle. So that's the situation. And I'm so happy to hear, Mr. Vishwesh, that at least there is now an easing up in the number of cases. So I'm so glad for that.
Thanks, ma'am.
Yes. And of course, Professor Ajantha Dharmasiri from Sri Lanka. So how about you in your country? What measures did your government do to make sure the economic impact is not that huge?
Thank you, Dina. Ayubowan, may you have long life. That's how we greet each other in Sri Lanka. I think that message is very relevant to the period that we are passing through with the planetary pandemic. We all need to have a long life. We need to be healthy and happy. So we are experiencing a 2 weeks lockdown because of the third wave. I would say first wave, we were very successful in curtailing, and then people became complacent. Then came the second wave, which had more casualties. And then once it was receding, people were again back into complacency. We had the local New Year celebrations in April where they really ignored all the healthcare guidelines. Now we have got another New Year cluster. They call it huge booming of COVID-19 patients. So currently the statistics are, we have 175,000 cases, and out of which 144,000 have recovered and 1,300 fatalities. But looking at from a positive point of view, with a population of 21 million, that's even less than 0.005%. So we are trying utmost measures in order to curb the COVID contagion, but still, I would say the response from people to some of the government initiatives could have been better. So the government has appointed a central institute called COVID Control Center, which is a very interesting way of civil-military cooperation. It's headed by the Major General, who is head of the armed forces, and also they work very closely with the healthcare experts. And then this is the time where the whole country has awakened to the alarming situation of the fatalities. Now, having detected the Indian variant in Sri Lankan soil, of course, we are the sister to the big brother India. So it's the, if you look at the geopolitical realities, we are very close to the South Asian neighbors. So it's very challenging with regard to battling daily in order to curb the pandemic. And interestingly, Dina, if you look at the social factors, now we all represent Asia Pacific, which houses 50% of the world population and which produces 40% of the GNP or the GDP of the world. And particularly if we come to South Asia, where my friend Musharoff and Vishwesh, we represent South Asia, where I would call it a HR region, humanly rich region, where we house 1/5 of the world population. So there, when you have more people, more problems and more prospects.
Yeah,
So,
well, yeah. Professor, you know, there are two sides of a coin. The more people you have, the more people can work also and produce, right?
absolutely,
It's just
absolutely.
that in you know, during a pandemic like this, it really affects everybody. Nobody is spared, really.
Sure, sure.
Yeah, so thank you so much for the sharing. And now let us hear from my very good friend, Lynn Mukhi, who is representing the People Management Association of the Philippines. So Lynn, let me hear your ideas. How can HR upskill or have multi-skilled people to boost their employability?
Thank you very much, Dina. Definitely allow me to be a voice of hope and inspiration in these very dark times. While we hear about the rise of unemployment, I would still say in every crisis, there comes opportunities. And in the past year, we've seen HR transform from a transactional, paper-based manual processes. We've seen the digital transformation of many HR functions in across different organizations. Definitely, that has helped us to be able to respond better to employee needs. What we have seen as well in the economy, Philippines is, I would say, perhaps not as fortunate as Australia, nor are we, neither are we as in such dire straits as India, because even as some industries experience a drop in revenues and had to let go of people, and I speak about the tourism industry, for example, the retail industry, which bore the brunt of the crisis, we've also seen the rise of employment opportunities in the business process outsourcing industry, right? Because we are a tech-enabled industry. And I think that's key. When we talk about upskilling, multi-skilling people, or helping them to become more employable, technology will play a very clear and very strong impact. And that's where HR needs to go. Us HR practitioners need to be very tech savvy, because not only for learning and development, but even for career management, or even for keeping our people engaged, keeping track of their well-being, we need to make sure that we have all the technological enablements for this. Secondly, keeping close track of how we might evolve organizational processes, as well as redefining roles, even as the organization evolves, so that it can continue growing the business during these times. We will see a lot of innovation and a lot of transformation. That means roles will evolve. So we need to be prepared in terms of moving people across different roles in our organization. And that again means providing a lot of opportunities for people to learn new skills. Whereas in the past, it might be that careers are more static and people tend to specialize in certain skill sets. The key now to having a vibrant workforce is to having our people skilled in various competencies that gives them a lot more flexibility in terms of the roles that they can take in the organization. So that's hope, right? People can always learn. And as long as we learn new skills, we will always find a way to grow our talent and expand opportunities for our people.
Yes, I know, Lynn, that you are always in touch with all the members of PMAP. So can you just make what we call an estimate as to the percentage of companies that are doing exactly what you are suggesting?
I bravely say that more than 50% of our member companies are looking at digital transformation. Since the beginning of the pandemic last year, people first has been the advocacy of PMAP. You know that we talk about the triple bottom line, and we have always championed putting people first, talking to business leaders, talking to industry leaders, saying that it's people that will drive business continuity. So on that note, we have seen various initiatives as well. For example, in June 23 and 24, PMAP will be holding its very first virtual job fair. And this is to serve our members as well as our non-members, the bigger community. It's our impact to society in the Philippines for everyone who has lost a job or is less employed, because some people have worked on shifts of 2-3 times a week, and that gives them time, right? Or makes them underemployed. So for anyone who would need a higher engagement in terms of employment opportunities, PMAP is connecting employers and those people through our virtual job fair.
I would say, Lynn, that to a large extent, it's the Filipinos' innate desire for education and higher learning that is enabling that, because every parent's desire is to send their children really to school. So still and all, I'm so glad that there are rays of hope around. Now, Mr. Musharoff, please share with us your personal story on how you were able to contribute to people's need to find jobs or to upskill.
Okay, thank you very much. You all know probably the Bangladesh, like other Southeast Asian countries, is known as the market for unskilled laborers.
Yes.
And you probably know we have exported 11 million unskilled workers, mostly in the Middle East countries. And I think Sri Lanka, India, they have also the same situation. And Bangladesh is also full of unskilled people. And you know that this pandemic time, the mostly affected people, adversely affected people are the unskilled people. Those who have the skills, they survive. Or that from our federation, as you know that our federation is the umbrella for the 10 organizations. You are very much familiar with this. Through our 10 organizations, we have taken number of skill development program at the member organization level as also at the federation level. And some of you have already been connected with me, and you can see that on an average, I also conduct 10 to 12 different programs in the Facebook and the STEAM. And through this way, we are trying to give two things. One is the confidence that this is a crisis, we can overcome it. I think in any crisis situation, you need to give the confidence to the people. That we are trying to give through our member organization, through our own federation. Second thing is, we try to give them some of the skills. Although I mentioned that a lot of people are affected, but one booming market developed in Bangladesh, that is the online business market, home delivery market.
Oh, yes, yes.
That has significantly emerged. And for that, my Indian friends, Sri Lankan friends are here. Our GDP, even higher than Australia, even higher than China, India, and Sri Lanka, because of this booming of the market. And nowadays, everything is available through online, and the market has emerged like anything. We have been locked down for such a long time, but it is not affecting that much. What we have given them, the confidence and also the IT skills, encourage them for going the IT skills. Bangladesh government has declared digital Bangladesh 10 years back. Very honestly, in the last 9 years, the progress and development on digitalization, what happened in last 9 years, in last 1 year because of the COVID, it is 100 times more. Now, each and everyone, no matter what is the literacy level, they know how to operate the IT. So this, I think we have significantly contributed, and that's why any country depends mostly on the business. Our business is not that much affected, As I mentioned, in some of the, priority area, government has given huge incentive in order to survive. Like during COVID, pandemic time, government with the special arrangement kept some of the industry open. Because if that also closed, then country will be suffering significantly. Second thing is the universities. In general, university face-to-face classes are closed, but online education and training, those are going on. And our federation is very much aligned with all those universities. Bangladesh has more than 100 universities, and federation has a direct membership of 2 universities. So through those universities, we are also trying to help in developing skills. What we strongly believe in this crisis, only our confidence and skills can help us to survive. Last thing, because of the skill development, many, I do not have the exact statistics and the number, have been able to manage the remote job. They are doing the job of other countries sitting in Bangladesh. Many. At the frontline level, lot of data entry jobs are available now. People from Bangladesh are doing, even for some of the American and Canadian and Australian companies, they are entering data sitting at their home. That was possible because of the skills. Second thing is, there are a lot of jobs now available remotely. Even if you now click, you'll find hundreds of HR director jobs. In California, Australia, and many other countries, you can even do the job, earn the hard currency sitting in your home country. And many of my known people and friends, they have taken this. Somebody loses the job here, has taken the job in another country, doing the job. And I know at least 2-3 persons, their salary become double.
Oh, wow.
Because of the currency difference. You see, we are making the salary and the local currency level, but if I get a job in US, then I'm making US money, which is $85 or $86, 86 taka a dollar. So you can imagine my one bucks become 86 bucks in Bangladesh.
Oh, wow.
So that's why it is affected. But because of our prudent leadership of our honorable prime ministers and her capable ministers, ICT ministers, our planning ministers, and a lot of capable ministers, it is affected. But our death rate is lowest in this part of the world. Our infection rate is lowest in this part of the world. Although we are surrounded by India, but we are blessed by Almighty that our infection and death rate is lower. Now that it is almost a normal situation, we have the vaccination given with the help of India, with the help of China. We did not have any own vaccination, but India was a friendly country and they have given. China is giving, and a lot of other countries are giving the vaccine. I have been vaccinated. And yesterday, I got the report of my antibody positive. So you can imagine that things are changing significantly.
Yes, yes.
So in a nutshell, if I mention that we have created an umbrella of all the organizations, and we have created a platform that face-to-face is okay, but you can also train people, upskill people through using webinar and online platform. So that has been created. As some of you know that I teach in the university.
Yes.
In all the universities where I teach, there is not a single class miss, single semester miss. Everything is going on through online.
Whoa.
So that's the beauty that, yes, we have find a different means of way of getting the job.
Yes, yes.
Yes, we are still doing the job. We are still teaching. We are still getting our salary, but in different. Like last 16 months, I'm still on a full-time job. Last 16 months, I have been doing my job sitting at home. And the organization is happy. My boss is happy. My performance appraisal is outstanding. So we are doing in a different way. So
Yeah, Mr. Musharoff,
mechanism is there. We have cooked up the situation. Thank you.
I'm curious about one thing. I'm so curious. Does this mean that your people are more compliant, for example, than ours? Because I'm sorry to say,
Yes.
oh my God, a lot of people, they know the protocols. Every day it's being announced. And yet they go to parties and they have big gatherings and all that.
You are right. You are absolutely right. Our people are very much compliant, and that's the reason you see each and every individual compliance matter here. And government was also very much strict. Even the very senior government officer was stopped. Why not mask wear? So those kind of things help. There are some symbolic, penalty for not wearing the mask. So all together it worked very well, and I'm very happy with our government and the progress, and things are okay in a different.
Thank you, Mr. Musharoff. I can attest to that because I visited Bangladesh 3 times, and I was quite impressed with your people. You know, they
and I'm looking forward to host you in our next HR convention. Ajantha was in our convention. It was very large. So as soon as we have the new normal, Rosemary, get ready to fly back to Dhaka again in capacity. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I am so excited to hear as well from Rosemary. So please share a personal story about this. What's happening now?
Thanks, Dina. I think I'd like to echo some of the comments from Lynn and Musharoff that the role of human resources during the pandemic has been so important. And what that's also meant is that the HR profession is absolutely growing in terms of status in the organisation, influence and impact, but also now the number of roles that are available. Musharoff noticed, how many roles are being advertised. So we're really seeing an increase in the HR profession. So the HR profession has really been able to respond so rapidly to, firstly, the immediate reaction to getting people to work from home, being able to work remotely, and for organisations to be, all sorts of organisations, except obviously, some of the front line like health services and so on, but have been able to be very productive working remotely. Looking after the health and safety, both the physical health as well as the mental health of employees. So, that focus on mental health and well-being has really become a greater priority as people work for, months and months remotely and without seeing their colleagues. Then the shift to the focus to productivity, and I think in many cases, organisations have found themselves to be more productive during the pandemic. While some industries really have declined, we've seen massive growth and change and rapid transformation, particularly digital transformation. So we've seen, while we've seen decline in some sectors, we've seen a rise and new sectors emerging. So HR has also been able to play an important role in quickly upskilling people, identifying what are the new skills. And also in that time, there's been restructuring. So those industries that have had to cut back and let people go because of the decline in revenue, they've also been able to support people in transitioning to other careers and to other roles. So that transition has been an important part of HR's work during this time. And what we're finding is that, and it sounds like we're finding that across the region, people are finding new types of work and new roles that have been emerging during this era. So there's a greater focus on rapid skills development. Now, changes that previously might have taken 2 to 3 years are happening in 6 months. So that speed and agility that's required of employees is really being supported through HR strategies and implementation. So I think those are all some of the things that particularly happened in the HR profession that have really impacted the changing nature of work, the impact on the improvement in the economy and the rapid change in response to the pandemic.
Rosemary, how is it now? What's the percentage? Would it be 50-50, 50% work from home, 50% in the office? What do you think?
I would say it's about 30% from home, 30% from the office and about 70% from home.
Ooh.
People are actually still quite reluctant to come back into the office, but they're also quite comfortable and able to work from home. So unless you're a frontline worker in essential services, in most industries, people have a choice. And because the vaccination has not been completely rolled out in Australia, we're really still at early days of the vaccination rollout. So there is still definitely some reluctance to use public transport and to come back into the central business district. So most employers, where they can, are giving their employees a choice. The other thing that's happened during the pandemic is there's been a lot of movement and relocation of people from urban centres, large urban centres like Sydney and Melbourne, out into regional centres. So people have taken the opportunity to sell up and have a lifestyle change, but keep their job because they know that they can do it remotely.
Wow.
So that's also obviously impacted the number of people that are coming into the city every day. So yeah, maybe 1 to 2 days in the office, maximum 3 for most employees.
Yes, actually that's happening with my company. But I lost a lot of them also because they cannot find transportation. But I have one very reliable person who comes in only twice a week.
And you know what, I think it's had such a positive impact on, it's had a lot of positive aspects, you know, impact on families, reduced stress from long commutes, take some of the pressure off public transport. You know, there definitely is some positives in there that people want to keep.
Yeah. But you know something, Rosemary, I noticed also, I was wondering because I asked our driver, why did it take you so long to deliver this 2 items only and almost the whole day? And he said, it's so much traffic. I said, oh, come on. I mean, you know, a lot of people are working from home, etc. And you know what he said? Yes, ma'am, but you know what? There are so many more private cars on the road. Oh my God. So in place of the public transportation.
Exactly. We have the same problem, probably not as severe as yours, but it's exactly the same shift. I think that's an unfortunate shift.
Yeah, right. Anyway, yes, so thank you so much for your sharing, Rosemary. And I took note of what you said, that you take special care of the mental wellness, the psychosocial aspects or situations of your people. And that is so good to hear. Yes, yes. I mean, you know, it's not just the physical. Yeah. It's the total being. Yeah. Right. Thank you. Thank you. Now, let me hear from Mr. Vishwesh. And, you know, this is an entirely different situation for you, Mr. Vishwesh, because we all realize that India just went through a whammy, you know. It's like, oh my God. It's like a big storm from nowhere, very unexpected. So, Mr. Vishwesh, please share your experience with that.
What I do that I'll share the live success story of upskilling and multi-skilling part. See, in Pune, I basically belong to the city called Pune from Maharashtra, which is a mostly industrial city in India. So one of the 4-decade-old multinational organization manufacturing engineering products. Once upon a time, it was a monopoly. So they were enjoying the monopoly, due to which their salary structure were too high. Facilities provided to the employees were extraordinary. Since the product was in demand for almost more than 4 decades, and this was only the manufacturing organization in India who was having that particular product. Management used to accept whatever the demand comes from the employees, and they used to sign the long-term wage settlement with such type of old one-sided clauses just to avoid the industrialization situations, work stoppage, and other IR issues. However, during last 7-8 years, many competitors have developed, and the company product is no more a monopoly product.
Oh.
Company started facing major challenges as the cost was too high for the labor, and the product cost was also simultaneously is very high. For the similar product with the same quality, the new competitors who just entered the market were selling on a much cheaper part because their salary structure were too low. The survival was one of the major challenge to this organization. And see the way they were working, I can just share one example. There were two people in the account department who were doing just taking out the checks for so many years because the earlier transaction was only through the checks. So two employees were just doing the taking out the drawing the checks. However, last 4 or 5 years, now the RTGS, NEFT, online payment have started. So these people were sitting idle but not doing anything because as their agreement, they were not supposed to do any other job, and the company accepted such kind of a thing. Similarly, the permanent workers were not working because they were enjoying the benefit of this long-term settlement where they have been provided the assistance. So employee having an assistant and assistant having again assistant. This was continuing, but since the product was so monopoly, so things were continuing. Now this problem came and the company realized that they will no more sustain. We decided to study. So after the study, we said, firstly, let us cut off the contractual manpower. Let us focus on the permanent employee. And amongst this permanent employee, only 40% were in the manufacturing or the core area, and 60% were in the support staff. So we decided that let everybody contribute in the manufacturing. So we organized the training program for this 60% support staff with the help of, we have a National Skill Development Corporation and there are training partners. So there were three months rigorous training in the factory premises during the working hours only. And after the assessment, they have been provided at the skill certificate, which is internationally valid. The entire cost of the training borne by the industry, and since it was during the working time, so there is no issue of the salary and all, everything was given to the workmen. And now all these 100% workmen are working in the manufacturing and production area, where company could really come out of this kind of a situation and they will at least sustain, or they will improve better in the terms of the productivity and quality. So this is one of the part HR initiative taken for the upskilling and the multitasking part. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Wow. So I gather, Mr. Vishwesh, from listening to you that there are also bright aspects of the pandemic. It brought about some what we call innovation and competition and made the products actually more affordable to your people. And you are giving the industries there, the various industries, and would you say also the government is also spending for job training? Was that correct, or the industries only?
Yes, the government is supporting for these activities.
All right. So this
we have a program called Recognition of Prior Learning, where the government funding is available for such kind of upskilling.
That's great to hear. I'm so glad that human nature somehow makes it imperative for people in a bind to innovate and find ways to come up with something new. So this answers part of the question of our past president, who sent a chat earlier that he is just wondering what the governments are doing to help people without jobs, and how about HR. So that was answered, of course, earlier by Lynn and Rosemary. And now, Lynn, there's somebody, a viewer, who asked a question, but the name does not sound Filipino. Is asking how they can find a job. So of course, job fair, but would the job fair be limited only to Filipinos, or there are other people from Southeast Asia? They can also join in the job fair. I'm not sure.
Right. Definitely the job fair is open to all countries and to all potential job seekers, because we are connecting employers as well as potential employees. And employers could be operating in different parts of the world, right? As I mentioned earlier, what we have seen during this pandemic is that boundaries have fallen away, and we've now seen the rise of the global talent pool. For Scrub, for instance, as Rosemary shared earlier, we've seen that we no longer need to hire people from the central business districts here in the Philippines because people can work remotely. And that has opened opportunities for us to also look at, hey, we could also hire people from other parts of the world. So when no, we tend to get very anxious, if that's part of our human nature, or very discouraged at times when we think about the losses that we have sustained. I believe that we should always look at opportunities and what we could derive as learning opportunities from this new situation.
Right, right.
Our world has changed and
Yes,
our lives will never be the same
yes,
again.
yes.
If we move towards a learning and a growth mindset, we will find opportunities for us because then we're seeking actively, not
Yes.
just for the job fair, but if you look at the career site, the websites of various organizations, you will see the different jobs posted, and
Oh,
you will find yourself encouraged and say, hey, people are still hiring.
oh,
In Scrub alone, we're ramping up to over 100 people in the next few months. So that's good news that I would like to share. And
yes.
we're not alone. There are many other companies who find that they can grow in spite of the situation.
Well,
And that speaks of the company's ability to turn around, to be agile, to create a culture of resiliency, be enabled by technology. There are ways that we can cope, and more than cope, thrive in this crisis.
yes, I'm curious. Does Rosemary, Mr. Bishwish, Mr. Professor Ajantha, and Musharoff, the do you also have job fairs? Where this time this PMAP is doing it virtually, but before I know we used to do it that people just go there, in a large hall and all. But this time it's virtual. Have you been doing this, Professor Ajantha? Do you have job fairs also?
Yes, in fact, thank you. I thought you have forgotten me.
No, 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 no.
Okay, so basically, it's a very good way of showcasing the available talent because we know talent is in high demand in some cases, but to have the right combination of where the talent is required and where the talent is available, the real matching opportunity is the job fair. In fact, Dina, echoing some of the points that my colleagues have already mentioned, I would like to highlight one important aspect in the whole pandemic, where the suffering of the small and medium scale enterprises. Sometimes the big giants have already earned surpluses and they can survive, but the real victims are the small players. And we saw that very clearly in Sri Lanka, where CNN rated Sri Lanka as the #1 destination to travel. So we were having a booming tourism industry. So there were a lot of small players who took a loan and put up a small motel, a small place for to accommodate tourists, and they all are suffering because the tourism industry is going through a huge challenging time. So then what we did was, in fact, I can represent two organizations, CIPM, my honorary professional role, Chartered Institute of Personnel Management, where we conducted HR clinics to help the people and how to manage their financials, how to ensure that
I see.
survive. And then my full-time organization, Postgraduate Institute of Management, we have a business incubator. We help these come up with a different model, how to revamp and revive the businesses they were doing. So it was a case of offering a helping hand. And I think these days, Dina, we need to demonstrate the 3 H's as Forbes magazine always advocate: humane, humble, and holistic. We all in HR need to be humane, humble, and holistic in knowing what is needed and supporting the leaders in other functions and to work together for the betterment of the organizations.
Oh my gosh, I'm so happy to hear that, Mr. Ajantha. What you're saying is that Sri Lanka is doing its share in really mitigating the crisis and what we call the surge of joblessness in different parts of your country, right? So in a manner of speaking, from what I hear from all of you is that I could see that the other part of the coin, the first one was dismal, of course, initially, and in some cases it comes back, like second surge, third surge, etc. But in the meantime, the HR people and the business community, as well as the government, they are all contributing to making progress in what we call having a victory over COVID-19. Now, this is coming from my COVID-19 consultant. He says that he foresees that practically vaccinations will be increasing, and as vaccinations are increased, then there will be less and less number of cases and more confidence will come in. And then travel will be allowed again, because now I know travel and the tourism industry really are suffering so badly, but it will come back. And his fearless prediction is it cannot possibly all happen this year, but he foresees that 2022 will be a much better year. But he said, remember this, we can never, ever again go back to what we were used to doing before. Everything has been disrupted, changed. But as I could hear also from all of your discussions, is that, well, a lot of good has come out of it. Mr. Musharoff said, oh, imagine that. They're jobless people now, they are earning more by being online. Imagine that. Some of them through online commerce, some of them found jobs, in other countries, and they are earning more. Isn't that something? So this, and of course from India, India also is coming back alive and fighting, and that's so good to hear. In Rosemary, I tell you that obviously Australia is among all the countries involved here. Obviously, Australia is what we call comparable to USA as far as economy is concerned, right? So, well, we can aspire to that somehow, but I know that the Philippines, the richest resource is always our people. Always, always. And that's why we protect our overseas workers, that even though now some of them have to come back and then lose their jobs, but slowly they are getting their jobs back as well. And they are now in the priority list as well for vaccinations, because they were like, whoa, a big source of income for our government. But I don't know if there is any other country here that rely so much also on your overseas workers. I think in the Philippines, that would be a huge source of revenue, really, our overseas workers. But more and more, as Lynn mentioned, there's now other ways to somehow get a hold of our jobs, maybe not the old one, but create new ones. And Professor Ajantha, I took note of what you mentioned earlier. It's not just the jobs, but you are also giving finance training, right? How to make sure that they build their financial security. I heard you right.
Basically, three things. Three things, Dina: the mindset, skill set, and tool set. First, the right mindset, as Musharoff said, with confidence and resilience. Then the required skill set. Third one is the tool set, like technology. They need to be tech savvy, as Lynn said. So basically, it's mindset, skill set, and the tool set that we need to give them in upskilling them properly.
That is so great. So it means that the HR people are not just sitting down, being complacent, and just doing, what their jobs, however they have really contributed to the whole business community and to the country. That is so good to hear. I'm so happy to hear that HR is becoming the level the level of HR is getting higher and higher in the different organizations. It's, I don't know if it's true in your country, but even here, many parts of the world, the HR leaders are now getting 7-figure salaries because of their huge contribution to the business. Isn't that something? So let me thank my good friends, starting with Mr. Musharoff Hossain from Bangladesh, and then Miss Rosemary Guyatt from Australia, Mr. Vishwesh Kulkarni from India, Professor Ajantha Dharmasiri from Sri Lanka, because now we heard so many perspectives, and of course, my good friend here in the Philippines, Miss Lynn Mukhi. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom, your experiences, and your tips and guidelines for how HR can help people cope with job loss. And remember, by the way, Dina will be screen sharing later the job fair, Lynn, for those who want to take note of that. And once he will do the job screening, oh yeah, here goes. The viewers can actually take screenshots of that so that you can also join June 24, 2 to 5 p.m. Philippine time. But of course, you can also adjust it to your local time. So there's a lot of jobs being offered online. And also, I just want to make the announcement that next week, we have our, what we call season ender, diversity and inclusion in the workplace, by our speaker, Mitzi Antonio of Nestle Philippines, and our host, Mike Jua. That's the season ender, and therefore, next week after that, we will have season 5. And remember, our Leaders Ed team is, we are a firm believer that learning is a never-ending journey with limitless vistas. Thank you, everybody. God bless you all. Virtual hug, everybody. Virtual hug. Yes.